Man, I think you did a good job. You touched up on some stuff that a lot of people need to hear. Like it's two D's, daddy and daughter, so they kind of go together. You know what I'm saying? Coming from somebody that's a black man that look just like me, man, that meant a lot for me to just get the invite. So I appreciate the word, appreciate the knowledge, and me and my daughter gonna be on your show.
All right, all right. First of all, let me say thank you guys for coming out. Thank you to Miss Anissa and the school administration for having me come out. Again, my name is Ernest James, and I'm a podcaster, I'm a speaker, I'm a father, and most importantly, like the other fathers in here, I'm a girl dad. As you see in my logo, this is me and my daughter. As you can see, this was quite some time ago. My daughter actually will be turning 21 this year. So I'm like on the other side of what you guys doing, right? So my daughter is going to be 21. And so one of the things that I did, I started a podcast called the Girl Dad Podcast, in which I talk to other girl dads just about our relationships with our daughters. And I even started having daughters on to talk about their relationship with their fathers. Because one of the things that I realized when I was doing a look back at my life a couple years ago, I realized that every woman I've ever dated was a fatherless daughter. And so for whatever reason, I recognized that I was connecting with this demographic of women for whatever reason. Either I was attracted to them or they were attracted to me. But me being the person that I am, my first thought was, what can I do in order to help these women that I'm coming in contact with? So I started a page on Instagram called Friend to Fatherless Daughters. And I just go on there and I talk about, fatherlessness and the things that I know and the things that I've experienced, even with the women that I've dated. And not only that, but also taking into consideration my relationship with my daughter and also my relationship of watching my father be a father to my sisters. Because I was raised in a two-parent household, which is quite different from the women that I dated. And so what I realized was I took in consideration watching my father raise my 5 sisters, 5 different personalities, 5 different women, and put that together, and that led me to give information, to give insight to the young ladies that I was coming in contact with. And not only those, but also to the fathers that I came in contact with. And so again, that led me to start the Girl Dad Discussions podcast so that I can have the conversations that I wanted to have with these fathers. It also led me to write a book called The Core 4, which is the core 4 values that every daughter should get from her father. And so again, taking into consideration the lessons that I learned from my father and watching him raise my sisters, and also the 21 years soon now of me raising my daughter, those core principles that I thought was important for every father to know and for every daughter to receive. And so I wrote that ebook. And so I just want to take a little time today with you guys just to give a little insight, or maybe just some of the things that I've learned over these 21 years of raising my daughter, and things that I think that you guys should look out for as you're going on this journey of being the most amazing girl dad that you can be, right? And so the first thing I want to say to you guys is congratulations. Congratulations that you even showed up today, right? Because the first thing I want you guys to take in consideration is to create and appreciate the moments. Create and appreciate the moments, because these moments will be the moments that they remember most. And also it'll be the moments you remember most or you regret the most if you don't take part in it. Unfortunately for me, when my daughter was like in not even 6th, 7th grade, but she probably was like 6 or 7 years old, they had their first daddy-daughter dance, and I had to work. And so I said, well, I'll miss this one, but I'll catch the next one. And as I told you guys, my daughter's going to be 21 this April. There never was a next one. So I missed that opportunity to share the moment that you guys are taking right now, to take time to appreciate these little moments. Because a lot of times, even as fathers, we think it's the grand things. We think it's the big things that make a difference. But in reality, it's not. It's the small things. So just recently, I was having a conversation with a father who took his whole family to Disneyland. And they went to Disneyland, and he realized he forgot something in the car. And so when he went to go back to the car, his daughter wanted to go with him. And so he took his daughter with him, and they walked back to the car. So on the way to the car, she saw the little shop where they sell the different things. And she said, Dad, I want the ears. I want to get the Mickey ears. And so he was like, all right. So he bought the Mickey ears for her, and he bought a pair for himself. And they took pictures and everything and went on to the car and came back. But what he said to me, out of that whole trip, we're going to Disneyland and seeing Mickey and Minnie and everybody else that was a part of there, the thing she remembered most is the Mickey ears. And she still has those same Mickey ears on her dresser to this day. And so I just want to tell you guys that even as you spend time and you take out the time to have these moments, just realize that it's not even so much as the grand things that they're going to remember most, but it's going to be the small things that taking out the time and being present in the moment that's what's going to mean the most to them. So even as you guys are going about and speaking and living and pouring life into your daughters, another thing of advice I want to give you guys is to embrace the change. And when I say embrace the change, I'm not talking about the change that you put in them, but I'm talking about the change that they're going to put in you. I'm talking about the changes that you're going to realize that there's a part of you that begins to change as you nurture this young lady. So I remember having a conversation with the guy. And most of it, I've actually, on the podcast, I've had conversations with dozens of girl dads, right? And a lot of times, like me, and I'm sure some of you guys, we always think about, man, I want that son. I want that son. I want that little mini me to run around and be just like me. But during conversation, what I realized, a lot of us want that because we want to pour into our sons to make them just like us, right? The good and the bad. But when we have daughters, we have a different mindset because we only want to give them the best part of us. We only want to give them the positive traits. And so I remember one father saying when he having his first child, and he wanted to be a boy, but he was deep in the streets doing all kind of stuff. And he was just like, man, I couldn't wait to have my son so I could take my son with me and be like that little mini me. But God had other plans. And he said, nope, I'm going to give you a daughter. Not just so you can pour into her, but I'm going to give you a daughter so you can change. And so as he took his daughter, what he realized was he didn't want to take his daughter to all those places that he was going to. He didn't want to take his daughter to all those environments that wasn't necessarily good for him to be in. But if he had a son, he would have had a little junior. He was like, all right, let's go. But because he realized he didn't want to take his daughter into them same environments, he began to change. And then he found out along the way, he no longer wanted to be a part of them environments. But now he became a better person. So as we're pouring into our daughters, we must realize that not only are we pouring into them to create them into the best version of themselves, but they're also molding us to be the best version of ourselves, right? And so one of the other things I want you guys to think about is that I want you guys to realize the impact that you have on your daughters' lives. So as a podcaster, I do a lot of shows. I talk on a lot of different platforms, talking to men and women, talking about fatherlessness. So one of my more recent shows, I was on a show, and it was myself and it was 3 other women. And we were having a conversation about friends, about male friends and role models. And we had a conversation, and what she said was, she remembered as an adult going out with one of her male friends. And they were sitting outside having lunch at like an outside cafe type deal. And so this woman walks past, and she said, and the woman was loosely dressed, should I say. She said she had almost no clothes on, and she was walking past, and she said, she looked at her friend because she said, I know when she walks past, he's going to look at her, and he's going to admire her and be eyeing her. But what happened when she walked past, he looked at her, then he turned back to look at her friend, at his friend, and he said, she must not have no daddy. And so the woman who was telling the story, her father had passed away when she was 6. So that statement made a valuable imprint on her. And she said, I don't ever want to carry myself in a way that someone can look at me and know that I don't have a father. And so I want you guys to realize just how important your part is into your daughters' lives. Not only is it important as you begin to mold them and teach them in the things that you want them to know, but it's important because of the way that they're going to go and show out and show up into the world when they leave your sight, when they leave your house, when they leave the surroundings from being under your protection, when they walk out into this world, they're going to be open to the elements. And how they show up is a pure reflection of how you showed up in their lives. So lastly, I want to talk a little bit about the core four. So on my journey as a father, as a brother, as a son, what I realized was that at its core, there are 4 core values that I believe that every father should pour into his daughter. And so those 4 values is guidance, love and affection, affirmation, and protection. So guidance, a lot of times we think about wrong and right? Teaching my daughter what's right, teaching my daughter what's wrong. But it goes so much deeper than that, because it's the teaching her how to make sound decisions. And as we know, as adult men, a lot of times our adult women are very emotional. And it starts from when they're young. They're emotional even as young. And so because of that, they make a lot of decisions based on how they feel. How does this make me feel in the moment? But when the problem was making decisions on how you feel, your feelings change from moment to moment. So if your feelings change, then the decision that you made based on your feelings will change also. And so we as fathers have to make sure that we're pouring into our daughters to teach them how to make sound decisions based off the facts, the same way we make decisions, based off the facts of the situation, not based off of how we feel in the moment or how this thing made me feel, how this person made me feel, but the facts of the moment, because facts don't change. Our emotions will change, the way we feel about something or someone will change constantly, but the facts of the situation will not change. So when we're talking about guidance, it's showing our daughters how to make sound, solid decisions. And not just good and bad decisions, but also better and best decisions. So I remember my daughter came to me and she said, "Dad, I want to buy my first car. And I've been working, I've been saving up my money. I want to have a good down payment to put down on this car." And I said, that's good. That's a good idea. That's very good. But I have a better idea. Why don't we work on your credit? Why don't we make sure your credit is so high so when you walk in there, you can sign your name on a paper and drive out a new car with your money in your pocket? Because that would be the best decision. So as we're guiding our daughters, we want to make sure that we're teaching them to make the best decisions, that we're teaching them to make decisions based on facts and not on feelings. Also, when we talk about love and affection, I want to say again, thank you guys for even being here, because you are the first example of what your daughter will see of what love and affection should look like, what love and affection should feel like, right? So make sure that you are giving them that example in the right way. Make sure you are taking out the time to hug them. Make sure you're taking out the time to show them what it means to be loved, even in how you interact with their moms or other women in your lives. One thing that I did that I thought was very important was I was married to my daughter's mom and we ended up getting divorced and I got remarried. But one of the things that was very important to me is watching how I carried myself when I dealt with her mom, and not only her mom, but her stepmom, because I didn't want her to see a negative example of what that should look like. Because who's to say one day maybe she'll get married, or maybe she'll get divorced, or maybe now she have to deal with a co-parenting household and a co-parenting situation. And I wanted to be the example to let her know, just because you're divorced don't mean you got to be enemies. Just because you separated doesn't mean you have to be evil towards one another. So I was very conscious about how I carried myself with her mom and how I carried myself with her stepmom, to make sure that I never called them out of their names, to make sure that I never talked down about them, but I always lifted them up. And if it was what my grandmother used to say, if you don't have nothing nice to say, don't say nothing at all. There were times when I just didn't say nothing at all, right? But we got to make sure that we're doing that same thing, that we're pouring into our daughters in order for them to understand what true love and affection looks like, right? And so the next thing that I want to talk about with the core four is affirmations. And the way I describe affirmations is telling your daughter something that she should know about herself, but maybe she just don't know or haven't recognized it yet, which basically means letting them know they are beautiful, they are smart, they are intelligent. They can achieve whatever it is that they put their mind to, because it's the truth. But one of the things that I want you guys to know is never allow the first time that your daughter hear a man say, I love you, be outside your house or outside of your mouth. You should be the very first person to tell your daughter, I love you. You should be the very first man to speak those words to her. So when she steps out into this world, she's not hearing it for the first time from Bobo or Nuck Nuck or whoever is on the corner, right? Because as we know, as men, there are some of us who can peep, who can see when there's something missing in our daughters. Even me growing up, I remember having one of my cousins. He had this knack for, first of all, he was attracted to bad girls, should I say. But the problem is he could see them from a mile away. And I remember walking in the mall, we'd be walking in the mall and it'd be girls way down on the other end of the mall and he'd see them. He'd be like, oh, her right there. And by the time we get in contact where we're close enough to have a conversation and he walk over and talk to her, right away, he was able to see who she was and say whatever that was needed to say to her in order to get her phone number and all of that stuff. But the problem with that was he wasn't seeing her as a positive thing. He was seeing the negative. He was able to pick up on that there was something missing, that maybe she didn't have a father in her life to pour into her like you guys are doing today. And so I want to expound and I want to encourage you guys to make sure you guys are doing the same thing, that you make sure that you guys are pouring into your daughters so they know that what love is, they know that who they are, because your words hold weight in their lives. So when you tell them they are beautiful, it means more than what somebody else says. When you tell them they're smart, it means more than what someone else says. And not only that, it begins to build their self-worth. And it begins to build up in them those things inside of them that says, yes, I am special. Yes, I am smart. Yes, I am intelligent. And when they step outside the doors of your home and they are approached by Bobo and Nuck Nuck and whoever else that's out there, they can stand up and say, when someone comes and says, hey, you look good, you're beautiful, whatever, they can say, I know, because my dad told me, right? So they know their self-worth is built, but they don't have to fall down and they don't have to fall for the games that some of us may have even played, right? So there are some things in our lives that when we look back and say some of the things that we have done, we don't want our daughters to go through. Some of the things that we may have done, the way we may have acted, we don't want someone else to treat our daughters the way we may have treated someone else's daughter. And so taking all that in consideration, we have to be sure and we have to be strong about what we're pouring into our daughters as far as affirmation. Again, letting them know they are wonderful, they are beautiful, they are smart, building up that self-esteem, building up that inner woman to let them know that they are enough. When they step out into this world, let them know they are enough. So they're standing up and they're stepping out with their heads up. Lastly, with the four core, I want to talk about protection. So protection, we all, as fathers, the first thing we know, we think about the physical protection. And we always think about the scene in the movie Bad Boys with Will Smith and Martin Lawrence when the guy comes to date his daughter and they do that whole thing. And so we automatically think about that. Even when our daughters are born, one of the first things we say is, all right, it's time to get the shotguns, right? Because we got daughters. So we're willing to protect them. But I want us to think about it a little bit different because I don't want us to just get stuck on the physical protection. But a better word that I want us to think about when we think about protecting our daughters is safety. What does it mean for them to feel safe? What does it mean for them to be able to express themselves, to feel safe in the way that they express themselves, to feel safe in the way that they show up, to feel safe in the way that they can stand up and say, this is who I am, right? Because in this world, as we know, whether it's in the marketplace, in the workplace, whether you're dealing with a boss or a boyfriend, there will be men and sometimes even women who will come into their lives and try to shut them down if they have a difference of opinion. Oftentimes, when we grew up, I would think that, I remember when I was younger, they had the old narrative that said you should be seen but not heard. And unfortunately, some people still carry that when it comes to how they treat our daughters, how they treat our women in real time, even as adults. And so that being said, we must be diligent about pouring into our daughters to the fact that they know who they are and they feel safe in standing up for themselves and standing up and being themselves. And not only that, but standing up to advocate on behalf of themselves. So when they are mistreated, when someone does say something wrong to them, when someone does come about and says something to them that's not necessarily right, they feel free to stand up and say, no, that's not right. This is how I feel. This is how I see it. This is how I use my voice in order to stand up for the things that I believe. And so, fathers, again, I just want to thank you guys once again for coming out tonight. Because, like I said, usually my daughter's with me. She's usually running the cameras. And so today she had to work, so she couldn't come. So they don't stay this small forever. You know, they turn into young ladies, and then they turn into young women. And then we realize that now we got a whole different set of problems, right? But one of the things that I realized, but even with the core four, is they never stop needing it. And so even as fathers, on the other side of it, as husbands, as spouses, as boyfriends, one of the things I want to say, again, that I realize is that as women, they never stop needing the core four. It just changes who they look for from the most. Because as they're at this age and they're young like they are now, they're looking for it from you. But there's going to become a time when they get older, but then they're going to be looking for it from their mates and the people that they're dating. So even in the lives of the women that you may be involved with, that you may be dating, that may be the mothers of your daughters, think about the four core when you think about them, because they still need guidance. They still desire guidance. They still desire affirmation. They still desire love and affection. And they still desire to be protected. And so as we're going about, I just want to say, first of all, again, thank you guys for being here. Thank you guys for taking out the time to listen to me talk, to listen to my presentation. And again, I want to extend the invitation to all of you guys to be on the Girl Dad Discussions podcast. I would love to have you. Again, we have discussions about what does it mean to be a girl dad? What does it mean for you? You know, what are some of the things that your daughter has taught you? So even as we go forth as being fathers and we're pouring into our daughters, they're also pouring into us. They're also changing us. And so I love to have those conversations. And sometimes even our daughters. I've had a couple daughters on a podcast where they were able to come and say, well, this is how I feel. And this is the relationship that I had with my dad. You know, and so I extend that invitation to all of you guys to be a part of the Girl Dad Discussion podcast. I would love to have you guys on. And also, if you guys could do me a quick favor. I know that we should have our phones, we probably do. If you could scan this with your phones real quick and give me a quick, it's a quick survey. It's only like 5 minutes, not 5 minutes, 5 questions or so. And tell me that, you know, what you guys thought about the presentation. And as a gift for you guys for taking out the time to do it, each one of you will get a copy of the Girl Dad Discussion. A copy of the four core values that every daughter should get from her father. So you guys will get a copy of that for doing that. So again, thank you guys once again.